what is for tonight my extraction area. This is just our kitchen. I haven't progressed as of yet into a honey house. That's in the pipeline, but just hasn't come about yet. So I'm still using the kitchen area, much to my wife's distaste. But anyway, here we are, and it is what it is. I have 3 extractors to go that will be operating tonight. I have a 15 framer, a 28 framer, and this old 8 framer. This old 8 framer is actually, it's at least 30 years old. It's a Lega brand. I remember going with my dad to pick it up. I was about 10 at the time, I think, so that'll tell you how old I am. I've since motorised it, but she's still going. Basically, it was a manual extractor, and that did us for years. Or the majority of my equipment is Lega equipment. Lega is a manufacturer in Italy. I suppose the reason why I went with Lega for the majority of my equipment is because of this extractor. As I said, it's going 30 years. The 15 frame extractor, believe it or not, I got that a number of years ago, well back when I started back keeping bees, maybe my second year back keeping bees. And again, I got a manual turn with helical gears. Wasn't really thinking ahead, if you want to put it that way. And I suppose, why am I telling you this really? I'm telling you this because ultimately I decided then to get a 28 framer, because even with those 2 extractors going, it was very time consuming. I have motorised the 15 framer obviously since, and the 8 framer is motorised. That certainly did pick it up a bit, but you were limited with frame sizes with both of them, whereas the 28 framer now will take, well, it takes 28 frames shallow, and you know, you get your deep frames into it as well, no problem, radially. Ideally, if I had planned ahead and thought ahead, I would have went with the 28 framer right from the start. And of course, the old 28 framer, or the old 8 framer, that's of sentimental value, so that's not going anywhere. But I will be, so I obviously I'll keep that going as long as she'll turn. So I'm going to show you some of the other equipment that I have here. Well, you can see the tanks here in the background. These are 200 kilo tanks, these 2. I have a third 200 kilo tank outside, but that won't come in until I make some room here with the boxes, which you can't see, they're just out of camera at the moment. And then I have a 50 kilo tank here in the corner. That's probably, I think, the only thing that I have really that isn't Lega here at the moment. But I'll show you some of the other stuff here that's kind of, you can't really see it with the counter. So these are my tanks, as I've said. Again, they're Lega brand. I like the Lega, I like the way they finish the tanks now. Unfortunately, I believe Lega's in trouble at the moment financially, but I suppose there is hope for the company, but that they'll get going again. But I mean, I don't know that much about it. I was looking to purchase something this year, and unfortunately then I discovered that the company just, I don't know whether they're not manufacturing or what the story is, but I mean, it's a pity, because I like the way they manufacture everything. They do a very clean weld here at the bottom of the tank. There's no seam really, if you see down. It's very clean. It's butt jointed, I think is what you'd call it. But as opposed to this old tank here, well, it's not that old of a tank actually. It's only about 10 years old, and you can see down there, there's kind of it's crimped in around the base of the tank, and it leaves a bit of a lip that actually is quite difficult to clean out when you're trying to wash out the tanks. And there always seems to be a bit of water residue down at the bottom after washing out. It takes ages to dry out, whereas with the Lega tanks, it's a very clean finish inside. And that leaves it easy to clean and easy to dry out as well when it comes to drying, because moisture is your enemy when it comes to honey, storing honey. Now, these are the 3 extractors. So you see in there. Now this, I'm fairly sure, was a custom cage to take Manly frames, because I can't find actually any information on it, and I wasn't able to get any information from Lega either on it themselves. So it may have been custom made here, and yeah, it's not a great setup if I'm being honest, because when you use, say, ordinary Hoffman shallows, they tend to splay out and create like a star-like effect inside when the extractor is going. I'll hopefully show you that when it's up and running. But it does mean then that the honey doesn't really get thrown out. It's not that economical when it comes to throwing the honey out. But anyway, as I said, it's of sentimental value, so as long as it turns, I'll stay using it. So this is the 28 frame extractor. Again, it's Lega. I have this 2 years now. It's a great extractor. I'll show you it running. And this is the 15 frame. Now this is actually, it's a 15 frame for shallow, national shallows. I can only fit 10 commercial shallows into it. You can fit deeps in, but they're tangential. You can see the way the cage is designed there to take tangential frames. So I think they call it the Jolly extractor. And you know, it allows you to fit various types of frames. So it takes 3 in kind of each section here, 3 frames. So you have 1 here, 1 in the middle of this where this little kink in the cages, and then 1 along this side. So that brings it up to the 15 frames. If you get a full complement in. Actually with Hoffman or with Manly frames, you also can't get 15 in, so it kind of has to be either you could mix Hoffman and Manlys, and that will allow you to get 15 in, or use all Hoffman shallows, national shallows. So then I have this press. I use this for pressing out cappings, or if I'm pressing out heather honey. This is what I use. So what I have is I have my cappings, uncapping tank here, and again this is a Lega uncapping tank, and I have set up underneath there another, you know, the plastic uncapping tanks or tubs that you get, and I have a sieve on that as well. And so it's any honey that's coming down through the baskets there and draining out, and the tap will drain into the tub underneath, and when I'm finished everything, then I'll just drain that off. I use a heated uncapping knife because I just, to be honest, you know, I've done the old cold uncapping, and I still have that there, but yeah, it's very time consuming, and I mean, I think just as a time saver, the heated knife isn't really, you know, in contact with the honey for any great length of time. So I mean, in my opinion, I'm not damaging the honey. I'm literally only skimming off the surface of the cappings, and the temperature is regulated on it so that it's not like excessively hot. And again, as I said, you're literally just flying down through the cappings and skimming them off, and that's it, job done. Rather than, you know, doing a kind of a bread knife action with the cold uncapping knife, or you know, using an uncapping fork. Now I still have uncapping forks then, obviously, for removing any kind of cappings that the heated knife can't take. So what I normally do is I uncap enough to fill the extractors. I then get them running. While they're running, then I start into another set of boxes, and I uncap them, and I leave them hanging in the uncapping tray or the uncapping tank. They'll drip away there, but when the extractors are finished, then I move those frames back into the boxes which I have outside here, and then I obviously transfer then the frames that are in the uncapping tank then into the extractors. So that kind of creates a bit of a cycle once I get into it, you know. The first 1 or 2 rounds can be a bit slow, but once I get into it, then you know, you just get going. Now I only have 56 boxes here, and so if there were 10 frames per box, and that's 560 frames. I've worked it out with the 3 extractors going, it'll be just over 12 rounds of the extractors. So I'm hoping to get them all done tonight. I like to segregate my honey into the various different apiaries that I have. So I'm currently only operating 3 apiaries with production colonies in them. So 3 extractors. I'll use 1 extractor per apiary site. That'll get the job done tonight. And again, then they will be stored in separate tanks. So that's really all I have to say at the moment. I'm going to get going here now. I'm going to put on a hairnet and an apron and get going, and I'll hopefully get to show you some of the extractors running and uncapping and so on. So another thing I just wanted to show you real quick, I have these 2 200 kilo tanks here, but one of them I have kitted out with a filter or a sieve on top. It's a fairly coarse sieve, but it just helps with getting the honey into the tank at a relatively clean state, then let it settle for, you know, a day or 2 before I drain it off into buckets then for storage. With this one here, I don't have a second filter or sieve to fit the tank itself, so instead I will be using just the double strainer on the bucket. Don't know if you can see that there now. So essentially that'll hopefully get the honey that goes into that tank relatively clean before it goes into the tank. Then this one, again, I'm going to be using just a coarse strainer that will sit on top of the tank onto the 50 kilo tank. So that's the 50 kilo tank is going to be for the smallest apiary that I have, but as I said, I have another 200 kilo tank outside, in the garage, just ready to go if I feel that the quantity of honey that I'm going to be getting is going to be enough to fill another 200 kilo tank. I don't think that's going to be the case because some of the boxes are quite light coming in, but we'll see where we go. But I reckon I'll have enough with the tanks that I have in at the moment. I do kind of like to leave the honey sit then in tanks for a day or 2 after extracting. Let as much of the particles kind of rise up to the top, anything that makes it through the sieves to rise up to the top, and then what you're draining off, you know, until you kind of get to that stage in the tank, it's pretty clean. I generally try to, when I'm running it out of the tank anyway, to run it through the double strainer again, just to kind of catch anything, especially in the tanks that didn't have the benefit of the double strainer. So yeah, I'm going to get cracking here. I'm going to just throw on my apron and my hairnet and get going. Yeah, I know, looks ridiculous, but has to be done. I suppose When you're working with your honey, you don't want the hair, and you don't want your hands are going to get, or your gloves are going to get sticky and dirty, so wearing the gloves just saves actually constantly having to go and wash your hands, but also just hygiene, general hygiene. So I'm just wearing my wife's favourite apron, but letting my feminine side show. But we'll power up the extractors now and let the knife heat up. I just use a high tool. Where did I put it? Here we are. Just a stainless steel high tool to break apart frames and boxes. And I rest the box then in my capping tank. I'm going to use the frame rest for uncapping. This time normally I don't, I actually just rest it on the wooden bar, but sometimes if I give this a go, this here, and I can see already this one is going to have to be done with the capping fork. So this box has one or two nice frames in it. They're on older comb. The new freshly drawn stuff. Very much bees didn't draw it out properly. Look at that. Hope you can see that now. That's the way it should work. Look at that for a frame of honey. Wow. Made a bit of a mess of that, but I'm sure the bees will forgive me. Some crystallized stuff in it, but not much. Here's another one on an old comb. That's why it's a bit darker. loaded now. I'm going to power them up. The boxes that I was working off for this particular apiary, there were commercial boxes that were accessible first, so and they're all Manly frames. So that'll only take 10 as opposed to the 15. Now, if I had the other the national boxes, they're accessible. You can get in at a bit of a squeeze a Hoffman national in the middle to make the full 15 complement, but they're not accessible in the bundle at the moment, so in the stack boxes at the moment. So this is the home apiary, and there's already honey draining out from the tap. I just into the bucket from them, so they should spin out easy enough. And this is one of the other out apiaries. Now, this extractor is rather noisy, so with the motor, I'm sure most of you recognise a grow shop motor. So it can be a bit noisy. So I'm just going to power up these ones here, and hopefully I've balanced everything correctly. There's a slow start on these as well. I'm just let it tip away nice and slow to start off. Drain out some of that honey first. Okay. I have a sneaky suspicion there's a little bit of heather in these frames. I could get a faint smell of it. So I'm not sure how these frames are going to spin out, but we'll see. Yeah, definitely looks like there's a bit of heather there, all right. You can see the thick golden beads of honey along the side. So now I'm just going to leave those spinning, and I'm going to get on with uncapping another load. I'll probably do a load for this extractor and for the 15 framer, and then we'll do the 28 framer when we've stopped then. So it's spinning away here. You can see there's honey coming out into the buckets. And when these buckets fill, then I'll empty them into the tanks. This extractor is actually working quite smoothly. I have 3 commercial frames in it, which I thought might unbalance it a lot. Initially it did when it's starting off, but it's not going too badly now. Might just up the speed here and see how she goes. little bit shaky, but not too bad. So even this big one, 28 frame extractor, moves around a fair bit. But once you have the extractor balanced, it rests on rubber feet, which kind of create that little bit of a motion in it. But once the extractor is balanced, it's actually fine. It looks worse than it actually is, I suppose. This one seems to be struggling to get the honey out. Now I'm going to get cracking on the uncapping some more frames. Ready for the next round. Unfortunately, the crop is, well, as predicted, not that great. I mean, so far I've gone through 5 or 6 boxes there from the home apiary, and I've actually only emptied 1 bucket into the tank. There's probably another, well, there's a bucket filling there from the extractor at the moment. One of the out apiaries, the sauna apiary as I call it, is there's a bucket almost from that now. I'm after extracting 3 rounds of frames there now. The first round was with national, and then the next 2 rounds were with commercial frames. So with the commercial frames I can only get 4 frames in at a time. And the BAL, I've actually only done 1 round of that so far, because that is taking forever and a day to come out. I think there might be a little bit of heather mixed in with it, and it's just slowing out the process of it coming out. So I'm just parking that for the moment, and we're going to get on with the others while we can, while they're free flowing, as it were. And that's kind of the plan now at the moment. So I'm going to empty this bucket in here, and this one filling up, so I'll just close my gate off. And then I just have another bucket here that I drop in underneath just to catch any drips. And it's a tight little squeeze here. But I'm just going to be putting it through this coarse filter, of course sieve. any other wax residues or anything like that will come floating to the top anyway, and I can scrape them off before actually releasing the valve down below and putting the honey into buckets. So let me just flip our bucket, and there we have it. So I'll just show you this press, this cappings press. I have a load of cappings ready to go in the tank here, so I may as well just take them out now and just show you how this works. It's fairly rudimentary device, fairly simple, but this one just tips back. You have to let the spin the disc the whole way up to clear it. So you flip that back, that's okay, resting on the extractor, and then I have my cage, which is completely movable, and I just pack my cappings in there. I have a bucket here that I can slot underneath, and you'd be surprised the amount of runoff that comes off cappings. So it's just a case of scooping the cappings in. Won't make a total mess of the handle. So then we drop our disc in and then put a pin in. And just tighten her up. Now initially when you're tightening this particular cage will start rotating. I tried to stop that from happening because it scratches the stainless steel plate down the bottom, but aside from that it's fairly simple and, as I said, rudimentary to use, but we'll see the honey pressing out now. And here it comes. So I use this for pressing header out as well, because header doesn't extract out that easily out of the combs. So this is just a good, well, it's the best way that I have of doing it. So, and that's what beekeeping is all about. You do whatever works best for you. So we'll give it another twist. And what you'll be left with at the end is a cake of wax. Now there will still be some honey in it, but you've drained the majority of this honey out, and this just saves leaving cappings lying around for days on end. I did try the bags in the extractor, but to be quite honest with you, I was very frustrated with them. It'd be very difficult to balance the extractor, so the extractor would be hopping around while you'd be trying to drain out the cappings in the bags. They're mesh bags that you can get, and you hang them inside the extractor. But and also for the effort and the length of time you'd have to turn them to try and get anything out of them, the return was minimal. So this press, as far as I'm concerned, yields a lot more out of the cappings, and you have a reasonably dry cake at the end of it. And if you just let that kind of do its thing, let the pressure kind of push the honey out, don't over tighten it too much too fast kind of thing, because the honey won't work its way out then. Whereas if I just leave it now, there's a good flow on it now, so if I leave it now, the honey that's in the wax still will kind of push its way out, and then in an hour's time maybe just tighten her up again. So that's it. That's the cappings press. So extraction is now finished, and it's the dreaded cleanup after. I finished up with probably about 350 kilos of honey. 2 of the out apiaries actually performed relatively well. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, because in one of those out apiaries they only had 3 colonies that were producing, and one nuke actually gave me a 6-frame box. So they did reasonably well. The home apiary here was a disaster. I know that, I know the reason, I suppose, behind it. Essentially, the summer that we had was atrocious, as you all know from watching my videos so far, and of course anybody in Ireland is going to know. But on top of that, the apiary is quite exposed. So whilst the other 2 apiaries are relatively well sheltered, the impact of the weather mightn't have been as drastic on them. The home apiary here gets hammered with wind, unfortunately. So even on sunny days, the bees were kind of struggling, you could see. Now, to close this video off, I just want to show you one final thing, a little tip that I do when washing out my equipment. I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere else before, so you often see extractors being washed out with cold water, or power washed with cold water, or hosed down with cold water, whatever. It takes an age and a day. What I do, if you can do this and you have the time to do it, I add about a half a bucket or so, or depending on the piece of equipment I'm using. If it's a tank, I'll actually add in a full bucket of water. Cold water, just add it in a day or so before you do your washout, and all the honey that's stuck to the sidewalls of the tank, I'll show you. I have it here in my extractors. You see it in there in the extractor, and it's just simply sitting at the bottom. But as you'll know, honey absorbs water, moisture, and so if you leave that sitting in the extractor for 2 to 3 days in the extractor, any honey that's kind of adherent to the sidewalls of the extractor will absorb that moisture and just kind of lose its stickiness. And I find that it's just a great way to wash everything down then with a cold water wash. There's no need for heated washes. In fact, a heated wash is probably one of the worst things you could do, because if there's any wax or anything, or propolis on the sides of your equipment, that'll kind of soften and then stick, and it's very difficult to get it off once it goes that way. So I find that the easiest thing, or the best thing to do, is just add in about a bucket of water into the base of your tank or your extractor, leave it sit there for 2 to 3 days, and then it softens everything out, and telling you, it'll just wash off, no hassle whatsoever with a power wash then after that, and very quickly. There's none of this kind of prolonged washing for hours and then trying to get the last of the honey off the tank. So yeah, you might find that useful. Yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe and all of that if you haven't done so already. And we'll see you on the next one. The next one's probably going to be final check-up on the nukes, really. The colonies are more or less sealed up now for the winter, but the nukes just might, I want to do one final check on some of them. It looks like I might have 1 or 2 failures in my splits, my late season splits that were made in August. But yeah, that's going to be the next video, so see you on the next one.